Well, I think these societies are irresponsible because they're publicizing wrong science, and therefore they're giving wrong advice to policymakers. Policymakers can strike back.
This is Climate Debrief, brought to you by the CO2 Coalition. I'm Angela Wheeler. We'll soon be talking with Dr. Wallace Manheimer. Dr. Manheimer is a Life Fellow of the American Physical Society and the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. He spent 34 years at the U.S. Naval Research Laboratory, serving as an ST-16 senior scientist for his last 14 years there. Now a consultant, he's authored more than 150 refereed papers on fusion, beams, microwaves, radar, and plasma tech. Since leaving the lab as a full-time employee in 2004, he has worked on his own scientific projects. One such project is fusion breeding, the use of fusion neutrons to breed fuel for thermal nuclear reactors. It's a pleasure to have you on Climate Debrief, Dr. Manheimer. What historical periods from human civilization do you point out that the American Meteorological Society seems to ignore?
Okay, well, they don't say that it's never been warmer, but they certainly imply it. They say the highest temperatures in the last century, they hope that we think we'll mean it in the last 10,000 years, is the highest ever. But it's not. There are a lot of ways of measuring temperature in historical periods, not only the period of human history, but the period of geological history. But I'll just stick to human history here, and not only human history, which goes back 1 million years, but human civilization, which goes back 10,000 years. And one way of measuring the temperature is with something called isotope ratios, and that's something physicists and physical chemists know about it. I mean, they might not know exactly how that works. I didn't until I looked at it, but I certainly know what an isotope ratio is. And that's one way of getting the temperature, is by looking at isotope ratios for various times in history. And if you look at the curve on the upper left, you see the red regions, which are the hotter regions by this isotope measurement. And if you look at the blue region, and at the end of the Ice Age, when it was really cold, you see some blue regions too, where the temperature was colder. And let me just concentrate on the Holocene climate optimum. And you notice that they call the red periods optimums, and the blue periods like little Ice Age. You don't want to, who wants to live in an Ice Age. And in this period, about 4,000 years ago, the temperature was calculated to be considerably warmer. And let me just say that this is a very smooth curve. If you looked at the actual data, it would look more like that curve I just showed on the last slide, which was the temperature over the United States from 2005. So this has a lot of smoothing in it. But there's no question that this Holocene optimum was a very much warmer period. And it's not only the isotope ratios that tell you that. You can look at geological, and you can look at archaeological evidence of it. Take a look at this map of the Northern Hemisphere. And if you look at the red semicircle going through North America and Canada and Alaska, and the other red circle going through mostly Siberia and Finland and Norway, south of that red circle is the limit of the northern forest. North of that red circle, there are no northern forests anymore. There are just rocks. But there are remnants of what used to be northern forests north of that. And you can tell when they were by carbon dating. And if you look at the blue curves here, you can see that the blue curves, 4,000 years ago, about the time of the biblical Exodus, these northern forests extended about 200 miles closer to the North Pole than they do today. So it must have been warmer then than it is now. Another way, in the Roman climate optimum, again, climate optimum because it's warm, good for people, the Romans had vineyards all over England. And in the Roman times, there were no cold weather grapes. I mean, the grapes were a tropical fruit in Roman times, and they could mostly grow in the Mediterranean. But the Romans managed to get them to grow all over England, right up to Hadrian's Wall. And this little map of England, which you can see, these are dots where there were Roman vineyards. And for hundreds of years after that, you couldn't grow grapes in England. So again, in the Roman climate optimum, it was warmer than it is for hundreds of years after that, and probably warmer than it is today. Another one, in the medieval warm period, the Vikings, as you know, settled Greenland, and they actually grew barley there. And the modern explorers in 2010 found some barley that had been grown in Greenland 1,000 years ago. So there's a great deal of history, and the American Meteorological Society should know this. It's not rocket science, and they're the experts in meteorology. How can they put something like that in their statement? It makes no sense.
What does the American Chemical Society claim about extreme weather events like floods, droughts, and hurricanes? And how do they say it affects Americans' well-being?
Okay, well, let's just take a look at their statement. Here's their statement. Extreme weather and related events such as floods, droughts, hurricanes, and they run on 100 other things, are increasing in frequency and intensity, threatening America's physical, social, and economic well-being. Well, let's just take a look at the three that they've mentioned, the floods, droughts, and hurricanes. For droughts and floods, there's an index called the Palmer Drought Severity Index, which is maintained by both the EPA and NOAA. And here is a graph of it for continental United States. And the numbers go from like plus 0 to plus 8 to 0 to minus 8. And a positive number means you're getting floods, a negative number means you're getting droughts. And there's a very jagged curve here, but let's just concentrate on the blue curve, which is, I think like a 5-year running average of what it is. And they're showing it from 1890 to 2020. And what they say is that if the Palmer Drought Index is less than minus 3, you're in a period of sustained drought. If it's greater than plus 3, you're in a period of sustained floods. So let's take a look at when there were sustained droughts. Well, there are only two periods where the purple curve is below 3. The 1930s and the 1950s. Nothing else. Let's take a look at when the purple curve is above plus 3. Well, it's not above plus 3 anywhere. There have been no periods of it, but there are periods which come close. Period around 1900, and then skipping all the way to the 1970s, 1980s, and 1990s. You get periods which are almost severe floods by their definition of them. And since the 1990s, the thing has basically been behaving itself. We haven't seen any particular floods or that. So the statement about the extreme floods and droughts is just incorrect. It's not hard to find this information. It's very easy to find it. You can find it with 2 or 3 clicks. Well, let's take a look at hurricanes. And here, I'd like to just concentrate on the running average. And this is for something called accumulated cyclone energy, which is a measure of how destructive the hurricane is. It's the maximum wind velocity feeds into it, the geographical extent feeds into it, the time of its lifetime, how long it stays together, feeds into it. And you can see that there are a lot of fluctuations. I mean, if I can read that in 1928, it was a very bad year, but just look at the running average, and it's relatively smooth, and it's relatively oscillation with a defined period of about 60 years. And it's decreased a little from 1888 to 1948, and then it increased a little bit from 1948 to about 2018, the 60-year maximums, but really not very much. And not only that, you have to consider that before about 1920, there were a lot of large hurricanes in the ocean which nobody knew about. They were in the ocean and there were no boats there and they didn't know it. So this curve should be raised a little, and even this curve should. This curve in 1948, there were certainly aircraft measurements of hurricane, but no space-based measurements. So these curves should each be a little higher if they had the measurements that we have today. So again, there's no increase. The American Chemical Society says hurricanes are increasing in intensity and frequency, and they're just not. And not only that, just as a aside, there's not a single hurricane that made landfall on the East Coast in 2025. And as far as our physical, social, and economic well-being is concerned, just a week ago I read that the life expectancy in the United States has just increased to a maximum ever of 79 years. And there's no social, economic well-being is not being threatened. And this Chemical Society says it is, and the data which anybody can get says it's not.
What does the American Geophysical Union statement say about changes related to global warming affecting the growth and nutritional value of land plants?
Well, this I think is the worst of all. For one thing, well, I'll get that. Here's their statement. Many other changes related to global warming and increased atmospheric greenhouse concentrations have already been observed and are expected to continue. These includes, and they list 100 different terrible things that are going to happen to us, and finally coming to affecting the growth and nutritional value of plants. That's right. It does. They just got the sign wrong. The carbon dioxide increases the growth of plants. And commercial greenhouses, no, we discussed this already. Commercial greenhouses pay good money to get carbon-rich atmospheres because that helps all their plants grow. And the thing about it is, let me just show you a piece of their data. And what they have is a picture of the whole world, centered, I guess, around the North World. And this is measurements of greening of the planet on Earth. In the green parts where greening has increased. And greening has increased over the whole world. And in fact, they quantify it. They said that the amount of added greening over the whole world is more than double, the amount of land area of greening is more than double the area of the contiguous United States. And the thing that really gets me about this is that there must be tremendous numbers of AGU people that work. Maybe they're rocket experts, maybe they're telemetry experts, maybe they're microwave experts, maybe they're data analysis experts. There must be a tremendous number of AGU members that work to get this, and this is just a fantastic accomplishment, that map. The effort of so many people. And many of them surely must be in AGU. And here is AGU with their statements insulting a tremendous number of their own members. I look on this map and what it shows, and I say, this is really the best thing that scientists have to offer the public, is something like this. And their statement denies the brilliant and important work of their own members. It drives me crazy.
In what way do you describe the statements from these prestigious science societies as being like the emperor's new clothes?
Okay, well, that's easy. Many statements of these societies, and I've just given a few. I mean, there must be at least 20 or 30 more in that paper that I mentioned at the outset. Many of the statements of these prestige science societies are incorrect, and it's not difficult to show this. I just showed it with the AGU, with the AMS, and with the Chemical Society. They do not seem to have done even minimum due diligence before publishing these statements and keeping them on their books for decades. I think every 5 years, the American Physical Society has to re-examine its society, and they never change it. People have badgered them to change it. I'm certainly one of them. I'm probably about the easiest one to ignore, but people like John Clausey, our Nobel Prize winner, has done it. Steve Koonin, Will Happer, Dick Lindzen, really major leaguers who are important members of the National Academy, but they always get ignored. Well, I think these societies are irresponsible because they're publicizing wrong science, and therefore they're giving wrong advice to policymakers. Policymakers can strike back.
Can you describe the congressional grilling of 3 university presidents by Congresswoman Stefanik, including the question they couldn't answer and the consequences for 2 of them?
Well, as I say, policymakers can strike back. Here is Congresswoman Stefanik grilling 3 university presidents and humiliating them in front of the entire world. 2 of them quickly resigned. They couldn't answer the simple question of whether student groups advocating the genocide of Jews were against university policy. And I think that similar fiasco, the society presidents, depending on the mood of Congress, if in the next election the Democrats take over, they'll probably be safe until the election cycle after that. If the Republicans maintain control, they may well call these science society presidents, and just by showing the sort of thing that I've shown here, they could humiliate them in front of the whole world. And similar fiascos by these science society presidents on their false statements in climate change can put them in the same boat as these university presidents. And as I said, they should change their statements now before the roof collapses on them. And it will, if not in the next Congress, the one after that, because at one point, the Congress is going to get the idea that they've been hoodwinked.
What are the 4 key changes you recommend for the Society's climate statements, such as replacing them with more uncertain language or acknowledging the benefits of CO2?
Well, there are several things. I have 4 of them. Number 1, replace their climate statements with ones that say there is most likely an effect humans have on the changing climate, but its importance for humanity is uncertain and is still being debated. Number 2, eliminate statements that are demonstrably incorrect, as shown by comparison with easily available and reliable data. Number 3, acknowledge in their statements that fossil fuel cannot be replaced in the next several decades without greatly endangering our civilization. And number 4, acknowledge in their statement that CO2 has obvious benefits for human existence. It's the gas of life, as well as potential risks. And if they want, they can hire me. I'll change all of their societies in 5. It takes me 5 minutes to do it for each one of them. But I hope they do it. I mean, I'm very proud of being a member of a life fellow of the American Physical Society. It's the second rank, probably right below being a member of the National Academy, but it's as high as I've managed to climb in this world. And I want these societies to prosper and to do the right thing, by making these crazy statements. I'm to blame for them. So I really hope that they do make these changes.
Dr. Manheimer, it's been so nice having you on Climate Debrief. We hope to have you again soon.
Thank you for joining us on Climate Debrief. Executive producer is Angela Wheeler. Producers, Ethan Audie and Scott Wheeler. You can find more episodes of Climate Debrief at co2coalition.org.